everybody. Hello, welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to, I guess today's Thursday, and I'm losing track of days, and I'm sure everybody else is too. So, super excited about today. It's Scone Day. Yay, Scone Day. I just need to get a few things out of my fridge because I wanted to keep those in until the last possible minute. So I'm gonna grab my butter and my cream. And then I also have some frozen blueberries for lemon blueberry scone day. So we're going to get those out. And blueberries. So, okay. So, hope everybody's doing well. Hello Instagram, hello Facebook. Hope everybody's off to a good start and of their day. Although the temperature dropped, which was kind of crazy. Yesterday I was wearing a tank top and getting a little sun, and now I'm kind of back into my flannel. So it's kind of crazy, but what are you gonna do? Not much you can do. It's the Midwest, so at least here. I'm sure some other places you're experiencing completely different weather patterns. So I'm just gonna slowly start getting myself organized while I wait for some people to jump on. So this is my favorite scone recipe. Love this recipe. I used to make it all the time when I lived in the Caribbean, and would do these cooking classes out of my condo, and I would make these as kind of a breakfast thing. And then obviously when I worked on charter, I would good morning, I would make them for charter guests. So they're really easy. There is a few more steps involved than the other scone recipes that I have given you, but I really feel like the fact that we whip cream makes it just gives it a lighter, airier flavor to it, and they're not as sweet. So you know, scones are not necessarily meant to be super sweet. They're more meant to be kind of like a sweeter biscuit kind of thing. So I think that's kind of why I like this too. So okay, we're gonna get started. So I have my KitchenAid. Hi Julie. I have my KitchenAid mixer, and I have kept the bowl and the whisk in the fridge for about 15 minutes just to make it cold, so that when I whip my cream, it's gonna whip up nice and airy and cold. So I'm just gonna do that for if this is a cup of cream, you're gonna use, in the recipe it said 1 cup plus 2 teaspoons. We're gonna use those last teaspoons to brush the scones right before we bake. And with that, since I always forget, set your oven to 400 degrees. If you're using a convection oven, set it to 375. And I'm gonna start whipping. We're gonna whip it good. Okay, so this will take 2 minutes or so. And I just slowly build up the speed just so that it doesn't splatter all over the place when you start. And you just want it to whip to soft heat so it doesn't take very long, especially if you've got a colder bowl, because that doesn't, you're not bringing down the temperature of the cream with a warm bowl. This way you are, good morning Sherry, you're not bringing down the temperature so that it has to come back up and whip again. So it just kind of keeps it a little bit more consistent and makes it whip up a little bit quicker. So, and it's already starting to thicken and all that fun stuff, so we're not too far from that. So, and then once that's done, we'll go ahead and do the fun, getting everything, all the dry goods and stuff in here, and start putting it together, if that sounds like a plan. If you guys have questions about the scones or anything, just shout them out, because there's going to be some time throughout today's demo that I am just working, so I can answer any questions, or we can have a conversation about something if you like. Okay, so this is getting really thick, but I want to let it whip. It's getting thick, but it hasn't really come together. Well, it's quickly coming together, so it's on the cusp. And you can kind of see as the cream starts to leave a ripple, that means it's starting to whip up and get the air in it. So wait, what are you whipping? I'm whipping cream, Jade. I'm whipping a cup of cream. that we're gonna fold into the scones. So to backtrack, I chilled my bowl and my whisk for about, I don't know, 20 minutes. So it's still, you can see this. So it's getting thicker. It's hard to see with this light, but it's still dripping. So I want it to get to soft peaks. I don't necessarily want it to get to super, super stiff whipped cream, but it's still drippy. So I want to let it whisk for another 30 seconds or so to a minute. And the higher the speed you go, the faster it's going to do it. So the faster, hopefully, it whips. It's very mesmerizing watching this. I'm realizing that. Okay, so this is what I would call a nice soft peak whipped cream, right? It's still kind of drippy, but it's very soft, and it's actually kind of holding its shape on itself. So I'm pretty content with that, okay? So I'm just gonna keep this in the fridge until we're ready to use it, which will be after we add our butter, okay? Okay. Awesome. Sweet. Okay, so we've got our whipped cream whipped. So I don't have to worry about that. So now I'm just going to start adding my dry ingredients. So, like I said, this particular recipe has less sugar in it than the other one, but we also substitute a little bit more honey, and so that it kind of has a little bit of a different dimension to the crumb and the scone itself. So we need 2 1/3 cup of flour. So if you remember, I like to scoop, even out, and then sweep. Okay, 1, scoop, and sweep. It's 2 1/3 cup. And then I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of sugar. I love my little canisters of sugar and flour. They're so convenient. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay. And then I'm going to add a tablespoon of baking powder, and where's my towel? And then a 3/8 teaspoon of salt, because of course it can't be inaccurate like, you know, what we're used to. But I'm going to show you what that actually is here in just a second. So, Carrie Beth, wow, hi girl, how are you? Long time. Okay, baking powder, a tablespoon of baking powder. Here, and 3/8 teaspoon of salt, which is actually just a very scant 1/4 teaspoon. Okay, right? Because 4/8 is a quarter. So, or a half. I don't know. What is it? Half? Quarter? So we're just going to do kind of a scant, not quite 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And then I'm going to whisk it all together. So we've got everything kind of nicely distributed. Hi, Carla. Good to see you. I hope you guys are safe in the BVI and not going too crazy. The British Virgin Islands is under a complete lockdown, 2-week, 24-hour curfew. So nobody's allowed anywhere. It's pretty crazy. So I'm feeling for y'all. It gets a little stir crazy. At least here we can do some go into the grocery store and stuff. So okay, so of course I didn't pay attention when I bought butter, and I got the little like quarter sticks, just kind of annoying, quite frankly. But I'm going to show you guys a new trick. Well, it's not really new, but new from these demos. So you can take some of this butter and just kind of break it off, right? And have fun. Or you can 3/8 teaspoon salt. That would be a little more than a quarter. Yes, yes, Sherry, that's correct. See, I knew you would be better at the math than I would. So just a little bit more than a quarter teaspoon, not a little less. But I use kosher salt, so it's got a little bit more of a grain to it than a bigger grain to it than table salt. So, okay, so you can break it up like this. You can also cut it into smaller chunks beforehand, or you can do what I'm about to do, because this is annoying. I miss my big chunks. You can, you guys ready? Where's my drum roll? I'm gonna open this up first, just to drag out the drama. Not really, I'm just actually trying to get all this done. And I kept my butter in as long as possible in the fridge. So I guess I could have unwrapped it and left it in the fridge, but you know, it is morning and I'm not quite all together there. Oh, and yesterday was my birthday, so I did maybe have a few cocktails last night. So maybe I'm a little slow this morning. Okay. Grater. So you can take, and actually it might be easier because your hands are going to be warm and you want your butter to be as cold as possible, to wrap it in the paper and grate it. Now it has to be cold, and actually this works better if your butter is frozen, because that way it doesn't stick to that, right? So I'm gonna try this. And then you can just grate it, which gives you those small slivers that you want. And you can break it in and incorporate it into the flour a little bit quicker. But like I said, it does work if it better if it's frozen butter, because it gets real soft real quick, right? Because it's being grated, so it's not grated like a school, but grated, right? I've been told I kind of run my words together, so I'm just going to take the last bits of these and just kind of break it up. So you can do that. And learning from myself, I'm going to not do that with the last one, but instead I'm going to break it up into smaller chunks with my dough cutter. And I did find my pastry blender, but of course I didn't get it ready for this show, so I'll have to show you that next week, how you can kind of cut in the butter with a pastry blender, because that really does save some time too. But I know that you guys like watching these things and watching me do it from like on a long-winded version, so we're all good, right? I'm really kind of like a little slap happy this morning, it would seem. It might be because I ate a few pieces of cake for breakfast, because I had a little bit of leftover birthday cake. So maybe I'm a little hopped up on some sugar. I don't know. Okay, so now I have my butter in here, so I just want to start breaking it in, cut it. It's technically, the technical term is cutting your butter into the flour. So I'm just doing what I've always done, which is taking it and kind of like pushing the butter into the flour. And with the smaller pieces, it obviously takes less time. So, I just want to say, like, this is the time where if you want to ask questions, because otherwise we're just going to sit in some silence as I try to think of something to say. Oh, but definitely I wanted to say thank you all for all of your birthday wishes. It was really cool to read them. I just finally started reading them this morning because I kind of took a personal day yesterday and just really didn't get on the social medias or do anything on the computer. I just wanted to kind of chill and enjoy the awesome day we had, and I went on a 5-mile hike. It was awesome, and we had the grill out last night and had some steak and potatoes, and then the weather turned, so we couldn't sit outside all night, which was unfortunate, but we sat for a little bit. But thank you all for the birthday wishes, and I will respond eventually to all of you. It can get a little overwhelming sometimes, and I know I kind of overlook some things, so I will get there, I promise. So I'm going to add, after this, the blueberries, because I don't, especially because they're frozen, I don't want to add the blueberries in while I'm doing this, because then I risk squirting the blueberries as I'm trying to cut in the butter. So I wait until afterwards. Now, if you were using dried blueberries, you could have already added them before the butter. I should have mentioned that before, but I have a tendency to get so caught up in this when I make scones that I always forget to add in my mix-ins until after this is done, and I'm like, oh wait, wasn't I supposed to do that before? But I think with like fresh fruit, you should wait until you've handled all the flour and the butter before adding it, so that you don't risk popping them and causing them to leak. Although a nice little blue hue in your scone wouldn't be the worst thing, I don't think. You could also use raspberries. You could use strawberries. You just would want to cut them up a little bit so that they're not huge chunks. Which, by the way, did anybody make that strawberry pound cake that I made the other day? And I'm curious if you did and what you thought about it, because it's a pretty yummy cake. So you guys have to tell me if you made it. And I did find, see, I'm just rambling here, guys, so you're gonna have to deal with me. I did find some yeast at the grocery store yesterday, which I was super excited about. So we are gonna do cinnamon rolls. And full disclosure, I don't like cinnamon rolls, so you know, this, I'm doing this for you all, right? I'm a giver, it's what it is. But I'm gonna make them because I've had requests for them. Okay, and we're just about done, so you can stop hearing me ramble, because if you don't ask me questions, then I get off track, and then I start to ramble. So, okay, so this looks like coarse sand, right? It's kind of what we wanted. Oh, it reminds me of my days back on the beach, in the islands. Sigh. Okay. Now I'm going to add my half cup of frozen blueberries. You can use fresh if you have fresh. I just don't think we have enough fresh, so we have a lot of frozen blueberries. So nice generous half cup. Plop them in. And then, I hate it when you have like a single hair tickling your nose. I've got a lemon that it calls for like a tablespoon of lemon zest, which is roughly a good sized lemon. I kind of use a whole lemon zest anyway as kind of a rule of thumb when I bake. It depends on how big it is, but usually a whole lemon is going to yield you about a tablespoon, give or take, and that's okay. I mean, it doesn't have to be precise, right? Because the lemon zest has so much flavor to it and aroma and essence that if it's if it's under a tablespoon, it's not gonna make that much of a difference. And if it's a little bit more than a tablespoon, it's just gonna add a little bit more lemony thing to it. So I'm using a zester. I love zesters. If you don't have one, I recommend it. Makes life so much easier. And there's like the lemon zest likes to stick on there, so I'm just going to kind of tap it. So now, oh, thanks, Keith. Looking at the beach right now, not that we're allowed to go on it. I know, you guys are tortured too, so we can all be tortured together, right, Jade? Okay, so I'm just kind of, I don't want to mix it too much, right, because I've already cut in the butter, but I'm just trying to distribute those blueberries a little bit more. Now, this is where it gets a little bit different from the rest of the other recipes that I did. I'm going to make a well in the middle. Okay, so of course as soon as I tilt it, you're not going to be able to see it, but there is a well in the middle, right? Kind of a hole. And I'm going to pour, hold please. I'm going to pour in my cream in the middle of that well. So it's nice and fluffy, but it's not super stiff whipped cream. You don't want a super stiff whipped cream. You just want kind of a soft peak, light soft peak, lightly whipped. Kind of, I think of it as like a droopy whipped cream, which actually is kind of my favorite way to eat whipped cream on desserts, is when it's kind of droopy and when it's super stiff, because, I don't know, they get more of the creaminess to it, right? So I'm just kind of scraping out what's left. I've got a spatula I don't love. It's not really working with me very well, so it's kind of not coming out as much. And then we're going to put in 1 tablespoon plus 1 teaspoon of honey. And remember my trick that I showed you guys last week is to make sure, because like syrup and honey, all that, right, when you pour it in, you end up getting most of it stuck in your spoon, so you're not quite sure if you actually got the right proportion. A little bit of pan spray. You can just kind of spray that, and then it's gonna slide right out. It's awesome. Okay, so let's see. Yay, honey. These honey jars with the little thing at the end, the hole where it comes out, doesn't come out very easily. I guess I could open up the cap and that would make life easier for me. But basically, nearly all of it has come out. So that makes it, oh yeah, actually you can see, like, if you can see, like, there's nothing in there, right? You guys see that? It all came out. It's such an awesome trick. You can do that for anything that's super sticky, that, you know, like maple syrup, molasses. Oh gosh, molasses is like the worst. I'm gonna, again, make life a little easier on myself. Open the cap. It pours out a lot easier. Okay. So now, yeah, that pours out a lot easier. And it pours out of my spoon a lot easier. So now, what I'm gonna do is there for a minute. I don't need that anymore. No, I'm gonna lightly fold the flour into the cream, okay? So I'm just gonna kind of lightly incorporate the dry with the cream. And you want to handle this as lightly as possible for a lot of reasons. One, you want your scone to be super crumbly, so you don't want to force it and stir it tight. 2, you don't want to break too many blueberries, especially if they're frozen. And 3, you don't want to lose that whipping that you've had with the cream. So you're just going to kind of fold it over itself, and you're going to have a lot of dry sections. So you just kind of, you know, once everything's kind of folded, just try to, better spatula here, get the stragglers with whatever left you have. And then you're just going to start to knead it gently in the bowl with your hands. So I'm going to do this, I'm going to go around just a couple more times. It's getting really half wet, a little sticky, a little bit harder to handle, right? Because you got a lot going on. That butter is now clinging to all the liquid and the flour. So you don't need to work it too hard, but now you can kind of knead it together with your hands. And then what we're going to do after that is we're actually going to turn it out onto the counter and knead it a little bit so that it comes together. So this is why it's a little bit different than the last one. Like the last one, it was like we just did it in a bowl and then put it on the pan. This one, we're going to kind of work a little bit more. It's really sticky. Not in a bad way, but just it's cold because of the blueberries as well as the cold whipped cream. But you can see, right? It's a lot together, but still needs a little bit of prodding, if you will. But you want to just be gentle. You don't want to have to handle this dough super hard because you want it to stay light and airy, which is kind of an oxymoron when you're actually working with this, because then you have to, you know, you're like, well, how gentle, gentle and how, what's too hard and all that. It just takes time. It's really not, I mean, we're not striving to make the world's best scones for a competition or anything right now, right? So you're not being judged on anything, but you just, I mean, in general rule of thumb, when you're working with biscuits and scones and anything that you're cutting fat into the flour, that the point of that is that you want a light, airy product. So you just don't want to work it too hard, but you still have to work it because you got to make sure everything is mixed. So just gentle, so I'm not pushing very hard, although it might look like I am. I'm just kind of putting it all together, and then got just a little bit left in my bowl. And the blueberries add a challenge to it, right? Because they're thawing, and so they're getting softer, and they will probably explode on me here in a second. So, okay. So now I'm going to put this onto a lightly floured, don't fall on that camera, okay. A lightly floured counter. So I'm just going to take like just a little bit of flour and just kind of sprinkle it and get all my stuff out of my way. Get all this out of the way. Okay. So now I'm just going to kind of lay this here, and I'm just going to gently knead this, right? Because but again, with the fresh blueberries, you want to be careful. See, they're already starting to burst. You can kind of see some on my hands. So I'm going to handle this a little bit lighter than maybe I would if I was using dried berries, because dried berries can handle it. But the flip side is the blueberries that kind of get crushed, you're going to have that beautiful, beautiful purple blue kind of seeping through your dough. So Patricia, this yields 8 scones. Okay, so what we're going to do is after we just kind of gently knead this, and I'm just kind of flipping it over on itself a couple of times. You could be a little bit, like I said, you could be a little bit more aggressive. That's not the right word, but you could do this a little bit harder if you had dry fruit or nuts or chocolate chips, something that's not a berry or a juice-based something. And you could push it down and knead it a little bit harder, but in the interest of preserving my berries, I'm going to go a lot lighter than I would normally. So, okay. So now, I want to transfer this onto my, and this is where it gets fun, is I want to transfer this whole thing onto my baking sheet. So now what you want to do is you want to, now I am going to get some of this butter flour off of my hands before I handle it. But what you want to do is you want to actually let it chill in the fridge or freezer for a few minutes, just to let that rest and set. But in the interest of this demo, I'm going to kind of show you what you do once it's chilled, so that you can kind of see what I'm talking about, and then you can do it either as I'm doing it or you can do it afterwards. So anybody have any questions? You guys are asking a few questions, which is awesome. So any questions about if you've done scones that don't work, if you've got, if you have tips on things that has worked, or better scientific knowledge than me, because I'm not a scientist, feel free to ask. How long should it chill? About 10 minutes, Sherry. So you want this to chill in the fridge for about 10 minutes. If you throw it in the freezer, about 5. Like I said, you just want it to, this is a really cold dough though because of the frozen berries. So I'm not overly worried, right? But it's just enough to let everything set. Let that cream and that butter kind of come together. And then it also kind of makes it easier to cut into the wedges because it's a round disc, right? Did I show you that? Did you guys see that? It's a round disc, and it's about, what is that? Sherry, you can tell me better. It's about an inch-ish, inch and a half thick. Ish is something I use in my vocabulary all the time when I'm not quite sure stuff, so that, you know, I'm not quoted later as saying something wrong. But, okay, so now okay, let's pretend this is chilled for 10 minutes. Like I said, it's fairly cold because of the cream and the frozen blueberries. But we're just going to pretend that this chilled, right? So I'm going to cut it. Actually, I'll put this up here so you can see this better. There we go. You guys see it? Okay, perfect. Just going to cut it in fours, kind of like I did yesterday with my decorating with the piping. I'm going to just kind of quarter it and then go back through. What is the oven temp? It's 400 degrees. If you've got a convection oven, it's 375. So I'm just going to make a cut in the middle. Okay. And then a cut down this middle. So now I have 4 wedges. And then basically, I'm just going to cut each wedge in half again. You can see that, right? Okay. So I'm going to cut this. And I'm going to cut each one of these in half again so that you get a beautiful triangle scone. I love these scones. I know I've said that before, but I just do. These are my this is my favorite scone recipe, I have to be honest. And I've made quite a few scones with different recipes over the years, and each one has their merit, kind of like pizza, but sometimes you just have a favorite. And I think I like this dough because it is easy to handle. It crumbles a little, but that cream really does help kind of keep things together, and makes it really nice to work with. Okay, so I have 8, right? I have 8. Yes, I have 8. Okay. Anyway. Okay. I have 8. Now I want to take just a little bit of cream and, oops. I have everything around me, but I just don't have it like in reach of the video camera. So I actually have a little bit of cream left just from where I poured it. So I'm just gonna brush a little bit of that 2 teaspoons of cream, right? That called for in the recipe, which by the way, I got the recipe from Fine Cooking. And if you guys have never tried any of those recipes, or if you are looking for a magazine subscription, Fine Cooking is an awesome magazine. I love that magazine. And they have a huge website with so many recipes for so many things. So that's where I got this one. So shout out to Fine Cooking for their awesome scone recipe. So I'm just brushing a little bit of cream on the tops, and that's going to help bring about a little bit more of that brown, that golden brown color that you like. I like, people like. And I used exactly the right amount. Okay, because it's got a little bit of fat to it and it'll help brown. And the nice thing about this particular recipe is that, I mean, it's not nice, good, or bad. It's just kind of interesting is that there's no eggs in it. There's no vanilla in it. So it's kind of unique. It's a little bit different. So, okay, so then you can take raw sugar. I happen to have like sparkling sanding sugar. Because I have tons of sprinkles in my life, because sprinkles are my world. You could also just use regular sugar if you want. And you're just going to gently kind of go over the top. And the nice thing about like having like that coarse sugar is that it won't dissolve as much when you bake it. So you've got kind of a pretty presentation texture on top. Like that. You probably can't see it because it's white and clear, but maybe you can see a little bit of it. I don't know if Instagrammers, if you can see it, but it has a beautiful just little sheen of coarse sugar on the top. So, and then you're gonna pop this in the oven for about, sorry, not sorry, Sprinkle Queen. Heck yeah, I need a shirt that says Sprinkle Queen, I think. Sprinkle Goddess, you know, whatever. Yeah, get on that, Jade. Anyway, okay, I'm going to throw these in the oven for about 8 to 10 minutes. Oh, I'm sorry, no, not 8 to 10, 15 to 20 minutes. until they're nice and golden. They don't need to be super golden brown because then they're going to be too dry. But 15 to 20 minutes at a 400-degree oven, and until they have a light brown around them and they look well baked and they're not too doughy. And if you're not sure, you can always sacrifice one and break it open, and if it looks like there's still quite a bit of dough not cooked in the inside, then pop it in for another 3 minutes. So, all right, guys, blueberry lemon scones delivered right to you. I hope you enjoy these, and I hope that you can show me some of your scones when you get done with them, or better yet, show me eating them, because then I know that you're loving it. So now that's 2 scone recipes I gotta try. Look, these look great. Yeah, thank you, Keith. These are awesome. These are awesome. So, and we'll do another scone day next week. I love scone day. It's one of my favorite days. So we'll do, I don't know what we'll do next week. We'll get something. We'll figure it out. If you guys have suggestions, you can drop it in the comments below. Otherwise, you're at the mercy of my decision making, which can be a little suspect sometimes. Anyway, thank you guys so much. This was fun. And share this video with anybody you think that would enjoy. I love the shares. It helps me to kind of have a reason to kind of teach people, and I love teaching people. So the more you share with people, the more people can enjoy what this is and have like a little distraction every day. And I know I like the distraction. So, all right, guys, have a great day. Enjoy it. I hope that wherever you are, it's a pretty day at least, and you can get outside and get some fresh air and stay healthy, stay safe, stay sane. And I will see you tomorrow for cinnamon rolls. All right, bye, guys.